Tonight, somewhere in a city of many millions, every single television is showing the same thing. Behind 100,000 windows, in every bar and every living room, and every crowded square, people are leaning toward the same glowing screens, holding the same breath, waiting for the same thing to happen. The whole city is pointed in one direction tonight, like iron filings to a magnet. Every face turned toward a single game. It is the biggest night this city has known in years. And moving quietly through all of it, beneath the noise, between the legs of the crowd, along the tops of the warm walls, there are the cats. There are always the cats. Thousands of them. In every city humans have ever built, living a second secret life in the gaps of ours, the whole parallel world nobody ever quite looks at. And tonight, one of them is lost. That cat is you. Welcome. Tonight we don't go down into the deep or back into deep time. Tonight we stay right here, in the warm electric dark of a city gone half mad with joy. And we go small, down to the height of a curb, the gap under a parked car, the narrow secret roads along the tops of the walls, down to 4 soft feet and a pair of eyes that drink the dark, moving alone through a night that belongs, for once, entirely to someone else. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Get comfortable. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears and let your breathing slow down. Because tonight you are small and quick and quiet, and the whole loud human world is happening just over your head, and none of it, not one bit of it, is about you. There is something strangely restful in that. Tonight, you have nowhere to be and no one waiting. There is only the warm dark and the distant roar and the long, patient search for somewhere safe to sleep. Because here is the truth of what you are tonight. You are lost, yes, but you are not helpless. You are one of the most perfect small hunters the world has ever made, dropped into a city that has, just for tonight, completely forgotten to notice you. You can see in the dark. You can hear a whisper through a wall. You can fold yourself into shadows and slip through gaps that don't look like gaps at all. The city is not yours, but the night you were built for, and tonight, so will you be. Let's begin. If you drift off before the end tonight, that's the highest compliment you can give me. And if you'd like more nights like this, the subscribe button is there whenever you're ready. You wake the way you always wake, not all at once, but in slow, soft layers, the world arriving 1 sense at a time. First the warmth, pressed against one side of you, then the sound, a low, far-off murmur, like the sea heard through a wall. Then, last of all, the dark behind your eyes, turning to the dim, glowing dark of the world. And you open them, and you remember, all over again, that you do not know where you are. You have been sleeping curled in the warm hollow above a parked car's wheel, tucked up against the engine, where the heat still lingers from the day, your tail wrapped close around your nose. This is a good trick, an old trick, one every street cat learns, that the machines the humans drive stay warm for hours. Little pockets of borrowed heat scattered all over the cold city. You found this one at the worst part of the afternoon, and you slept through the whole long golden slide into evening, because that is what you do. You are built to sleep through the bright, wasteful middle of the day and the dead, cold heart of the night, and to be most awake exactly now, in the soft blue hours of dusk and the soft grey hours of dawn. The light is leaving the sky. The street lamps are coming on one by one. This is your time, but this is not your place. You can feel it the moment you slip down out of the wheel well and land soft on the pavement. That wrongness, that subtle electric wrongness that comes from being somewhere your body does not know. The smells are not your smells. The corners are the wrong corners. There is no familiar wall here with your own scent rubbed into it. No remembered doorway. No patch of ground you have marked 100 times as yours. You have wandered somehow. Chased, perhaps. Or carried. Or simply drawn too far by some scent or some sound across too many unfamiliar streets. And now the careful invisible map you carry inside you, the map every cat builds of its own small kingdom, has run clean off its edges. Beyond here, you do not know the way. Beyond here, you are simply lost. And the city tonight is not helping, because the city tonight is not its ordinary self. There is something in the air, something building, more people than usual, moving in the same direction, wearing the same colours, their voices pitched higher and looser and louder than the everyday murmur you know. Cars going by with flags snapping from their windows. Somewhere, the thump of music, a swelling, gathering, restless feeling, as if the whole enormous animal of the city is tensing for something. You don't know what it is. You have no way to know what it is. You only know that the world feels strange and charged and far too loud, and that you are small and lost and very, very hungry. So you do the only thing there is to do. You lift your nose into the strange air, and you read it, and you begin, carefully, to move. Before you take another step into this strange, loud night, let's take a moment to appreciate exactly what you are, because for all that you are small and lost and hungry, you are also one of the most flawlessly engineered hunting animals that has ever lived. Pound for pound, gram for gram, there are few creatures on Earth as perfectly assembled for moving silently through the dark as the small cat sitting alone on this unfamiliar curb. Start with your eyes, because they are the first wonder. They are enormous for the size of your head, and they are built, above all else, to gather light. Behind each retina lies a special mirrored layer that bounces what little light there is back through your eye a second time, squeezing every last possible scrap of vision out of the gloom, which is why, in near total darkness, where a human would be stumbling blind, you move with easy confidence, and why, when a stray beam catches your eyes in the dark, they flash back an eerie glowing green. You cannot see in perfect blackness. Nothing can. But in the thin, dim light of a street lamp, 2 corners away, you see a world the humans crashing past you cannot even imagine. You need only a fraction of the light they do. The night, to you, is not dark. The night is simply quieter. Now your ears, which never stop moving, each one is steered by dozens of tiny muscles, swiveling independently, turning and tilting and fixing on every sound like 2 small radar dishes, and they hear far, far beyond the human range, up into high, thin frequencies no person will ever catch. The ultrasonic squeak of a mouse behind a wall, the scratch of claws on brick. You can tell, with astonishing precision, exactly where a sound is and exactly how far. In a moment, when the city explodes, those magnificent ears are going to become a problem. But for finding a frightened mouse in a strange alley, there is no finer instrument in the world. And your whiskers, those long, stiff hairs, are not decoration. They are tools. They are rooted deep, wired to nerves, sensitive enough to feel the faintest stir of air. to map a dark space by the way the air moves around it, to tell you in an instant whether a gap is wide enough for your body to pass through without ever having to look. Your whiskers are roughly as wide as you are. They are your own built-in measuring tape for the night. And then the rest of it, the soft padded feet that let you walk in perfect silence, the claws that slide out only when you need them and tuck away clean and sharp when you don't, the spine so flexible you can fold and twist and pull yourself through impossible spaces, the balance so exquisite that a fall which would shatter a larger animal is, for you, merely an inconvenience to be corrected mid-air. You are a soft grey ghost. You are a whisper with teeth. You are, even lost, even hungry, even small and alone in a city that isn't yours. One of the most quietly capable creatures walking the entire face of the earth tonight. Now, let's go and find you something to eat. You round the corner, and the strange charged night opens up in front of you. And you understand at once that something enormous is happening, though you will never, ever understand what. The street ahead is full of people, not the ordinary scattered evening trickle, but a real crowd, thick and loud and moving and alive, flowing toward the bright open fronts of the bars and the cafes, where great glowing screens have been wheeled out into the warm air. People in matching coloured shirts, people draped in flags, faces painted, scarves held high, long tables spilling out onto the pavement, crowded shoulder to shoulder. Every face turned the same way, toward the screens. And the noise rolls over you in a wave. A great churning sea of voices and laughter and music and engines, and somewhere, threaded through all of it, the tinny amplified sound of a far-off stadium, raw pouring out of 100 televisions at once. For you, this is almost too much. Remember those magnificent ears, those exquisite instruments tuned to catch a mouse's heartbeat through a wall. Now imagine them flooded, swamped, overwhelmed, every nerve lit, up at once by a city shouting with joy. You flatten yourself low against the base of a wall. Your ears fold back. Your pupils, which have been wide and round to drink the dark, narrow to wary slits. Every instinct in your small body is telling you that this much noise, this much movement, this much chaos means danger, and you are not entirely wrong. But you are also, by now, an old hand at the human world, even if this particular madness is new, because here is something the humans crashing past you have entirely forgotten. You and your kind have lived alongside them, inside their cities, in the cracks and the margins of their noisy lives, for thousands upon thousands of years. You have threaded between human feet since long before this city existed, since long before any of these flags, or these games, or these songs were even dreamed of. The crowd is overwhelming, yes, but the crowd is also, in its way, deeply familiar. Just the same old, loud, unpredictable giants you have always lived beside, only more of them, and louder, and stranger tonight. So you do what your kind has always done. You do not run blindly. You read the crowd the way you read everything, patiently, carefully, from the safety of the edge. You find the seam of shadow along the base of the wall where no foot will fall. You wait for the gaps in the river of legs. And you begin, low and quick and close to the ground, to thread your way through the great roaring festival of the human world. Entirely beneath its notice, a small grey secret moving through the cracks of the biggest night this city has ever known. The humans navigate this night with their eyes and their screens and their shouted directions. You navigate it with your nose. And your nose tells you a far richer story than they will ever read. Because where a human walks through the world half blind to smell, catching only the loudest, nearest scents, you move through an entire landscape painted in odor, layered and detailed and constantly changing. A second invisible city laid right on top of the visible one. You have hundreds of millions of scent receptors crowded into your small nose. And more than that, you carry a second smelling organ entirely, tucked up in the roof of your mouth. So that sometimes, when a scent is especially important, you'll stop and open your mouth slightly and pull the air across it in a strange little grimace, tasting the smell as much as smelling it, reading it in a way no human language has a word for. And tonight, the scent map is overwhelming and wonderful and full of information. There is food everywhere, grilled meat from the stalls set up to feed the crowds, the sharp sweetness of spilled drinks, fried things, sauces, the warm, doughy smell of bread, a whole feast of human celebration drifting in clouds down every street. Your empty stomach clenches at it. Somewhere close, something edible has been dropped or spilled or forgotten, and your nose is already turning, already tracking, already pulling you toward it. But the scent map tells you other things too, things that matter just as much. It tells you where the other cats are. Every wall, every corner, every doorway in this city has been marked and remarked by generations of cats before you. Territory lines drawn in scent, invisible to every human walking past, but to you, as clear as a fence. This corner belongs to someone. The alley is contested. This wall, here, has been claimed by a big confident Tom, whose scent is heavy and rank, and warns you, plainly, to keep moving. You read these messages without thinking, the way you breathe, and they shape every step you take. Because in a strange city, knowing whose ground you are crossing is the difference between a quiet night and a fight. And underneath all of it, the food, the other cats, the drink, and the smoke, and the crowd. Your nose keeps searching, automatically, helplessly, for the one scent it cannot find. Home, the particular smell of your own place, your own wall, your own safe corner. Some cats lost in a strange city can find their way home across astonishing distances, navigating by means the humans who study you still cannot fully explain. By scent, by the angle of the light, perhaps even by sensing the Earth's own magnetic field, the way the migrating birds do. But tonight, in this churning sea of 1,000 other smells, that one familiar thread is buried, lost, impossible to follow. So you do what you must. You let it go, for now, and you turn your nose toward the food. Hunger, in the end, decides your path. And on a night like this, in a city overflowing with food and careless with its abundance, a clever cat need not go hungry for long. You follow the richest thread of scent down a side street, away from the worst of the crowd, to where a food stall has been doing a roaring trade, feeding the celebrating masses. The ground here tells a story your nose reads instantly. Dropped scraps, a fallen skewer of meat, a paper tray of something abandoned, half-eaten on a low wall when its owner rushed off to catch the game. This is the great secret bounty of the human world, the reason your kind first came in from the wild so very long ago, that wherever humans gather, humans waste, and where humans waste, a patient cat can feast. But you do not simply rush in. You never simply rush in. You are an ambush hunter to your very bones. And even here, even with food in plain reach, every move you make is calculation. You watch from cover first. You check the angles, where the people are, where a dog might be, whether any of the other shadows along this street are cats who got here first and might object. You hold yourself low and still and patient, gathering information until you are as certain as you can be that the coast is clear. Patience is not a virtue for you. It is a hunting strategy, bred into you across 10,000 years and 10,000 generations. The cats who rushed in carelessly did not live to have kittens. You are descended entirely from the careful ones. And then, when the moment is right, quick, a silent dash from shadow to prize, a few fast, efficient bites, your eyes never stopping their nervous sweep of the street, even as you eat. You are not a leisurely diner. Eating out here is the most exposed and vulnerable thing you do, head down and committed, and you know it in your bones. So you eat fast and you eat alert, ready to vanish in an instant if the night so much as twitches wrong. You bolt down what you can, the meat, the fat, the good, rich, careless human food. And it is warm, and it is plentiful. And for the first time tonight, the gnawing emptiness in your belly begins, blessedly, to ease. And here is a small mercy of this strange loud night. A city this distracted, this drunk on its own joy, this utterly fixated on the glowing screens, is a wonderfully safe place to be a hungry stray. No one is watching the gutters tonight. No one is shooing you off, or chasing you, or even seeing you at all. The whole human world has turned its back, just for a few hours, and left its feast unguarded. You have stumbled, lost and frightened, into the one night of the year when the city forgets to notice you. And a forgotten cat, on a night like this, eats very well indeed. You are not, of course, the only cat working these streets tonight. You never are. For all that the humans imagine you as solitary little loners, the truth of street cats is far more tangled and social and interesting than that. And tonight, fed and a little calmer, you begin to notice the others moving through the margins of the festival alongside you. There, across the street, in the deep shadow of a doorway, a pair of eyes catches the light and flashes back at you, low and steady and watchful. Another cat, a lean grey queen, older than you, settled into this territory long ago, watching you with a flat, unbothered assessment of a local, sizing up a stranger. You hold still. You do not stare directly. A hard stare, between cats, is a threat, a challenge, so you look slightly away. You blink slow and soft. You make yourself small and unthreatening. And after a long moment, she looks away too, and goes back to her own business. And a kind of wary truce settles between you. You are passing through. You mean no harm. She has decided, for now, to allow it, because this is the real social world of the street cat, and it is nothing like the lonely myth, where there is enough food, and tonight there is food everywhere. Cats gather into loose, fluid colonies, overlapping territories with their own quiet rules and hierarchies, their own truces and rivalries, their own tangled web of who tolerates whom. Often these colonies are built around the females, around mothers and daughters and sisters who know each other and groom each other and raise their kittens in loose company. The big toms range wider and rougher, claiming great overlapping kingdoms, defending them in the night with those unearthly yowling battles every city dweller has heard through a window and cursed. It is not the warm, easy society of a wolf pack or a pride of lions. But it is not solitude either. It is something subtler. A society of polite distances, of careful, negotiated space. of strangers who have learned the precise etiquette of leaving one another alone. And so you move through their kingdom as a careful guest. You read their scent marks, and you respect their lines. You avoid the heavy rank corners that belong to the big toms. You blink slow at the watchful queen, and you pass on by. You take only the food no one is guarding. You are lost, and you are alone, but you are not in an empty world. You are threading through a whole hidden community of small lives, just like yours. All of them out tonight in the warm chaos. All of them living their own secret stories beneath the roar. None of them paying the football the slightest mind. You will likely never see most of them again. But for one night, you share their streets. And in your own careful, distant catway, you are not entirely alone in the dark. But a strange city on a wild night is not only food and shadows and the company of other cats. It is also danger, real danger, the kind a lost cat must hold in the back of its mind through every single step. And your whole magnificent body, even fed, even calm, never once fully lowers its guard. The first danger is the obvious one, the one your kind has never fully learned to fear enough. The cars. The roads tonight are busy and reckless, full of celebrating drivers with flags streaming from their windows, going too fast, paying too little attention, their minds on the game and not the gutter. To you, a road is a wide-open killing ground with no cover and unpredictable thunder. And you cross it the way you do everything, low, fast, and only when you are as sure as you can be. You wait at the curb, your whole body coiled and reading the rhythm of the traffic. And you do not trust the gaps until you have to. And then you flow across in a single silent rush and melt into the shadow on the far side. The cats who misjudge the road do not get a second lesson. You have crossed 1,000 roads. You intend to cross 1,000 more. Then there are the dogs. Most of the city's dogs are home tonight, but not all. And a strange dog, off its lead, excited by the crowds and the noise, is a serious threat to a lost cat in unfamiliar territory, where you don't know the safe, high places, the bolt holes, the routes of escape. So part of your mind is always mapping those escapes as you go. That wall you could leap, that gap you could vanish into, that drain pipe you could climb faster than anything on earth could follow. You never walk anywhere without knowing, instinctively, exactly how you would leave it in a hurry. It is simply how a prey animal that is also a predator learns to live. Always eating, always hunting, and always ready to run. And then there are the humans themselves, most of them harmless, most of them tonight too happy and too distracted to so much as glance at you. But not all. A crowd this size, this loud, this loose with drink, holds the occasional cruelty, the kicked out foot, the thrown bottle, the grabbing hand. You give the densest, drunkest, loudest knots of people a wide and careful berth. You trust the quiet edges and distrust the roaring center. You have learned, as every street cat learns, that the human world is mostly indifferent, occasionally kind and just often enough dangerous that you can never quite afford to forget it. So you move through the night fed but wary, calm but coiled, soft but ready, threading the narrow line every wild thing in a human city must walk, between the easy bounty of our world and the sudden careless dangers of it. And then, with no warning at all, the entire city detonates. It comes without warning, and it comes all at once. And for one heart-stopping instant, you are certain the world itself is ending. Out on the big screens, Somewhere in that far-off stadium, pouring out of 100 televisions, something has happened. A goal. The goal. The thing the entire city has been holding its breath for all night long. And in a single explosive instant, the whole vast roaring animal of the city throws back its head and screams with joy. It is not a sound so much as a physical force. A wall of pure human noise slams down every street at once, from every bar and every window and every square simultaneously. 100,000 voices erupting together in a roar so total, so enormous, so all-consuming that it seems to come from the sky and the ground and the very air all at the same time. For you, with those exquisite ears, those instruments built to catch a whisper through a wall, it is overwhelming beyond anything. You flatten instantly to the ground. Your ears slam flat against your skull. Your pupils blow wide and black with shock. Your fur stands up along your spine. And every nerve in your small body screams the same single ancient message. Flee. And then it gets worse. Because now come the fireworks. Sudden cracks and booming concussions splitting the sky overhead. Flashes of coloured light. More noise piled onto the impossible noise. And you bolt. You run. You pour yourself into the nearest deep shadow, the narrowest gap, the safest dark hole you can find. And you press yourself into it, small and trembling, heart hammering against your ribs, waiting for the terrible world to stop. And this is the great strange gulf between you and the giants you live among. Because that sound, that overwhelming, terrifying, world-ending sound, is not a sound of danger at all. It is the exact opposite. It is the purest sound of human happiness there is. A whole city united in a single moment of helpless collective joy. Strangers embracing strangers. Grown adults weeping and laughing and leaping into each other's arms. It is one of the most beautiful things this species ever does. And you, crouched trembling in your shadow, have no way to know that, no way to understand it, no way to feel anything but terror at it. The biggest, brightest, most joyful moment of the entire night. The thing this whole enormous city has been yearning toward for hours. And to you, it is simply the sky falling in. So you wait it out, the way you wait out everything. You stay small and still and hidden in the dark. And slowly, the great roar breaks apart into smaller pieces, into singing and laughter and car horns and music, into a joy that rumbles on, but no longer crushes. And your heart, that small, fast, frightened heart, slowly begins to settle, and your ears, cautiously, lift. And after a long while, the world has proven once again that it is not, in fact, ending. You uncurl, and you blink, and you slip back out into a city that has somehow grown even louder, even brighter, even more completely lost in its own happiness, and even less likely than ever to notice one small lost cat moving quietly through the bottom of it all. It happens by a quiet doorway, away from the worst of the celebration, and it happens so gently that at first you barely understand it. You have crept down a calmer side street to let the roar fade. And there, in the warm light spilling from a small, late-open shop, an old man sits on a low stool in the doorway. He's not part of the great celebration. He is too old, or too tired, or simply too content to watch it all roll past from his own quiet corner. And as you pause at the edge of the light, weighing whether to cross, he sees you. He goes still. And then, slowly, carefully, in the way of someone who has known a great many cats across a great many years, he does not reach for you, does not lunge, does not call out. He simply tears a small piece from the bread roll in his hand and sets it down on the ground a little way from his feet and looks away. You know this gesture. Some old, deep, inherited part of you knows exactly what this is. This is the oldest deal in the world, the bargain your kind struck with his kind so very long ago, replayed now in miniature, in a doorway on a festival night. I will not harm you, and here is food, and the rest is up to you. And so you weigh it, as you weigh everything, the distance, the angles, the escape route, the precise quality of stillness in the old man's hunched shoulders. And then, carefully, you cross into the light. You take the bread. And when you have eaten it, you do not flee. Not quite yet. You sit, just out of reach, and you look at the old man. And you do the thing that means, in your silent language, more than any words could. You blink at him. Slowly, softly, your eyes closing and opening in a long, lazy gesture of perfect trust. The slow blink, the cat's way of saying I am not afraid of you. And the old man, who has known a great many cats, understands it completely and smiles and slowly blinks back. This is the thing the humans rarely understand about how you came to live among them. They did not capture your ancestors. They did not tame you the way they tamed the dog or the horse, breaking the wildness and bending it to a purpose. No, your kind, in a very real sense, chose this. Thousands of years ago, when the first humans began storing grain, the grain drew mice, and the mice drew the boldest and most opportunistic of the wild cats in out of the dark. And those cats discovered that life on the edge of the human world was warm and safe and full of easy food. And so they stayed, not as servants, not as property, as partners in a quiet bargain that suited them perfectly. You keep the warmth and the food, we'll keep the company and the mice, and neither of us will pretend the other is fully tamed. You are not a domesticated animal the way a sheep is domesticated. You are a wild thing that decided long ago that it liked us, and that, on its own terms, and only ever on its own terms, it would stay. And so, for a few minutes, in a warm doorway, in a strange city, on the wildest night of the year, the oldest friendship in the world plays out one more time. An old man and a lost cat and a piece of bread and a slow, soft blink pass between two species across 10,000 years of shared firesides. Then a knot of singing fans rounds the corner, too loud and too close, and you melt away back into the dark. But you carry the warmth of that doorway with you, a small, bright coal of it, deep into the rest of the long night. The old man's kindness leaves something stirring in you as you slip back into the shadows. A feeling without a name, a soft ache that the warm bread did not quite fill. Because that gentle doorway, that quiet bargain, has woken an older memory, buried deep, half-faded, that you carry without ever quite looking at it directly. Were you always a cat of the street? Or was there, once, somewhere, a window? It is hard to say what a cat remembers, and harder still to say how. You do not remember the way a human remembers, in stories and pictures and words. You remember in scent and in feeling, and in the deep, wordless grooves that comfort and fear wear into a small animal's mind. But there is something there, something warm and golden and far away. The memory of a particular windowsill, perhaps, wide and sun-warmed, where you once lay for whole long afternoons watching the world go by from the safe side of the glass. The memory of a bowl that was always full. The memory of a hand that was gentle, and a voice that made a particular sound over and over. a soft, repeated sound that you slowly came to understand was meant for you. A name, though you would never have called it that. Just a warm, familiar noise that meant safety, that meant come, that meant you. Maybe you wandered too far one day and could not find your way back. Maybe a door was left open at the wrong moment. Maybe the window closed for good, the way windows sometimes do, and the warmth simply ended and you found yourself out in the cold, with no way to explain it and no way to ask why. You do not know. You cannot know. You only carry the faded golden weight of it, the half-remembered warmth, surfacing now in this strange, loud night, stirred awake by an old man's breath and a slow, shared blink. And here is something that may surprise the humans, who so often imagine that a cat does not truly care. You almost certainly do. Your kind forms real attachments to places and to people and to other cats. There are cats who pine when their humans vanish, who wait at windows, who grieve. The bond is real, even if it is quiet, even if it is offered always on your own fierce terms. So whatever warm window you may have lost, somewhere back along the tangled road that led you here, it is possible, it is even likely, that you miss it, that some small part of you is searching all the time beneath the hunger and the wariness and the careful navigation of the night for a warmth you can half remember and cannot quite find. But you do not despair, because despair is a human thing, a thing built of words and futures and the long imagining of what might never come. You are spared all of that. You simply carry the ache the way you carry everything, lightly, in the present, one careful step at a time. And you keep moving through the warm electric dark, your nose still searching, somewhere underneath it all, for the scent of a window you may never find again. Pause here, in the middle of this long, strange night, and consider the truly remarkable thing about the small lost creature picking its way through this city. You are the latest step in one of the oldest and most successful partnerships in the entire history of life on Earth. You did not stumble into the human world by accident tonight. Your whole kind has been walking into human cities, on these exact same soft, silent feet, for longer than almost any of those cities have stood. It began, as we touched on, more than 10,000 years ago, in the warm cradle of the first farms, when the first wild cats crept in out of the night to hunt the mice in the first grain stores, and stayed. And from there, your ancestors did something almost no other wild animal has ever managed. They spread across the entire world, not by being captured and carried, but by being useful and tolerable and quietly indispensable, and so being welcomed wherever humans went. They sailed on the ships. Every ship, for thousands of years, carried cats to kill the rats that would otherwise have eaten the stores and gnawed the ropes. And so your kind crossed every ocean and reached every shore that human sails ever touched. There is, quite literally, almost no inhabited corner of this entire planet where some ancestor of yours did not arrive in the bottom of a boat, leap onto a strange new dock, and simply move in. There were times your kind was worshipped. In ancient Egypt, cats were sacred, beloved, protected by law, mourned with deep grief when they died, associated with gods and grace, and the warm, fierce protectiveness of a mother. There were times your kind was feared and hunted, blamed for things no cat ever did. Through all of it, the worship and the persecution, the rise and fall of every empire humans ever built, the cats simply kept doing what cats do, moving through the margins, killing the mice, taking the warmth and the food, choosing, generation after generation, on their own terms, to stay alongside us, while never once fully surrendering the wildness that makes a cat a cat. And that is what you are tonight. Not a lost pet, not a stray accident. You are an unbroken thread reaching back across 10,000 years, the direct descendant of the bold ones who first crept in from the dark, of the ship's cats who crossed the unknown seas, of the sacred cats of the river kingdoms, of an endless line of small, clever survivors who walked into every city humans ever built and made themselves quietly, permanently at home. This roaring festival city, with its screens and its flags and its football, is just the newest in that endless line of human places your kind has always moved through. The humans think tonight belongs entirely to them, but you and your ancestors were threading through the bottom of night exactly like this one long, long before this game was ever invented. And you will be doing it quiet and unnoticed, long after tonight's roar has faded into memory. The street-level chaos eventually grows too much even for your patience. And so you do the thing cats have always done when the human world gets too loud and too crowded and too low. You go up, because there is a second city above the city, a whole hidden network of roads that no human ever travels. The tops of the walls, the ledges, the low roofs, the windowsills, the drain pipes, the narrow, forgotten high places that stitch the rooftops together into a secret aerial kingdom. And you move through it with a grace that would stop any watching human's heart. You flow up a drain pipe as easily as walking. You balance along the top of a wall barely wider than your own paws, your tail sweeping slow behind you for balance, utterly unconcerned by a drop that would terrify anything that could not do what you can do. You leap a gap between rooftops that should be impossible for a creature your size, and you land soft and sure and silent on the far side, and you simply keep walking. This is where your astonishing body truly comes into its own. That flexible spine, that low center of gravity, that exquisite inner sense of balance, all of it built across millions of years for exactly this. Moving with total confidence through a three-dimensional world of heights and edges and narrow places. And should you ever misjudge, should a tile slip, or a leap fall short, you carry one of the most remarkable safety systems in all of nature, the righting reflex. Even falling, even tumbling, even dropped upside down with no warning, your body will twist itself in the air in a fraction of a second, a beautiful sequence of folding and turning that brings your feet back under you before you land, so that a fall which would kill almost any other animal your size is, for you, very often nothing worse than an undignified surprise. You are built to live up here, among the edges, where nothing else can follow. And up here, the night is finally quiet. The roar of the festival is below you now, muffled and distant, a warm golden murmur rising up from the bright streets like heat from a fire. From the top of a high wall, you can look out over the whole glowing, celebrating, roaring city. Every window lit, every square full, the whole vast animal of it, still lost in its happiness far below. And you sit, for a while, in the cool, clean air above it all, your tail wrapped around your feet, watching. Safe, separate, above the noise at last. There is a deep peace in this high, quiet place, a peace that the lost, frightened cat of a few hours ago could not have imagined. The city rages on beneath you with its joy you'll never understand, and you simply sit above it in the dark, small and self-possessed and perfectly calm, the secret sovereign of a kingdom of rooftops that no one down there even knows exists. But no cat can stay on the rooftops forever, and the night, in time, begins its long, slow turn toward its loneliest hours. The great match ends. The fireworks fade, and slowly, gradually, the enormous roaring animal of the city begins at last to settle down to sleep. You feel the change before you understand it. The noise thinning, the crowds breaking apart, the singing growing scattered and tired, the bright bars beginning, one by one, to dim and empty and close. The great collective joy that filled every street is dispersing now, flowing home, draining out of the squares, and back behind the 1,000 windows. The flags hang limp. The streets that were a churning sea of celebration just hours ago grow wide and grey and littered and strangely silent. And the warm festival night, which for all its terrors at least felt alive, gives way to something colder and emptier and far more lonely. The deep, small hours when the city has spent all its happiness and turned its back, and a lost cat is more alone than ever. These are the hard hours for a creature like you. The food stalls are shuttered now, their bounty swept away. The kind old man's doorway is dark and closed. The other cats have melted back to their own safe territories, their own warm, hidden corners, leaving you a stranger once more in a kingdom that is not yours. The borrowed warmth has drained out of the parked cars, and the cold, the real cold of the dead of night, begins slowly to find its way into your fur, and you feel for the first time in hours the full weight of your situation press back down on you. You are lost. You are alone. The great party is over, and it was never yours to begin with. And now the city is going to sleep and leaving you out in the dark. And yet, and this is the quiet strength of what you are, you do not panic and you do not give up, because those too are human luxuries you are mercifully spared. You simply lower your head into the cold wind, and you keep doing the only thing there is to do, the thing your kind has always done in the cold, lonely hours. You search. You search for warmth. You search for shelter. You move slow and patient and tireless through the emptying streets, checking every doorway, every grate, breathing warm air up from below, every gap and nook and sheltered corner. Your whole being narrowed now to a single, simple, ancient need to find, before the worst of the cold comes, somewhere small and safe and warm enough to curl up and wait out the dark. You have done this 1,000 nights. You will do it 1,000 more. And somewhere in this vast sleeping city, you know, there is a warm place waiting. You only have to find it. And here, in the cold and the quiet, let's talk about the strangest and most comforting thing your small body can do. A thing that the humans who have lived beside you for 10,000 years still do not fully understand. You purr. It is one of the gentle mysteries of your kind, somewhere deep in your throat, in the cold, lonely dark, with no one to hear it, and no one to comfort, and no reason at all that a human could easily explain. You begin, softly, to purr, that low, steady, rolling rumble, felt as much as heard, vibrating through your whole small chest. The humans have studied it for a long time, and they still argue about exactly how you make it, and exactly why. They know it is produced by a rapid fluttering of the muscles in your voice box, a soft motor idling at a low, steady frequency. But why you do it, that is the deeper puzzle, because you do not purr only when you are happy and warm and content in someone's lap. You also purr when you are frightened, when you are hurt, when you are sick, or in pain, or, like now, alone and cold in the dark. And this has led to one of the loveliest theories about you, that the purr is not, or not only, a sound of contentment, but a sound of self-comfort, a thing you do to soothe yourself. There is even some thought, still argued over, that the particular low frequency of a cat's purr may have a gentle healing quality, that it may help to calm a racing heart, to ease pain, perhaps even, in some small way, to help the body knit and mend itself. Whether or not that turns out to be true, the gentler truth is plain enough. A purring cat, alone in the cold, is a creature comforting itself in the dark, making its own small warmth where the world has offered none, singing itself, very quietly, through the loneliest hours of the night. There is something almost unbearably tender in that, when you sit with it, this small lost animal, far from any warm window, far from the kind old man's doorway, curled now in some half-sheltered corner against the cold, and from deep in its chest, unbidden, comes that soft, steady rumble, that ancient self-made comfort, that quiet insistence of a body that intends against everything to be all right. You do not know you are doing it. You do not know why. You simply do it, the way you have always done it, the way every cat curled alone in every dark corner of every city across 10,000 years has always done it. You make, out of your own small body, the one warm, comforting sound there is, and you wrap yourself in it, and you wait for the dawn. The night, like every night, finally begins to end. And the ending of it, after all the roar and the cold and the long, lonely searching, is the gentlest part of the whole story. It comes the way it always comes. Not suddenly, but in slow, soft degrees. The black of the sky thinning, somewhere behind the buildings, to the deepest blue. The street lamps beginning to look pale and tired against a sky that is no longer fully dark. The first faint grey light seeping into the emptied street, and with it, a great and total silence, because the city that roared so enormously just hours ago is now utterly and completely asleep. The bars are shuttered, the squares are empty, the flags hang still in the windless dawn. The millions who scream their joy into the night are home in their beds, spent and dreaming, and the whole vast, exhausted city lies quiet and grey and washed out in the first light, like a stage after the play is over and the audience has gone home. And this grey, quiet, exhausted dawn is for you the most peaceful hour of the entire night, because the cold is at its very last and weakest now, with the promise of the sun just behind the buildings. The dangers have gone home to sleep. The crowds and the dogs and the cars and the noise have all drained away, and the streets belong once again to the quiet creatures of the margins, to you. You uncurl from your sheltered corner, stiff and cold but whole, and you stretch, long and luxurious, the way only a cat can stretch, every muscle pulling awake, and you step out into a transformed city, a hushed city, a city scattered with the debris of its own great happiness, the dropped flags, the spilled cups, the confetti drifting in the gutters, but silent now, and soft, and finally, blessedly, calm. You move through it slowly, in the grey light, unhurried for the first time all night, the only thing awake and abroad in the whole sleeping city. The festival is over. The biggest night this place has known in years is finished, already sliding into memory, into the stories the humans will tell for decades. And you walk through the entire enormous heart of it, the roar, the fireworks, the joy, the terror, the kindness, the cold. And you came through, small and lost and tired, but alive and whole, into this quiet grey dawn. And now there is only one thing left to do. Find the warm place. Find the sun. Find the very end of the longest night, somewhere safe to finally, properly sleep. And you find it. Of course, you find it. You are a cat, and finding warm places to sleep is, in the end, the truest and deepest art your kind has ever mastered. It is nothing grand. It rarely is. Perhaps it is a low windowsill on the eastern side of a quiet building, where the first long golden light of the rising sun has just begun to pool, warm and buttery and soft. Perhaps it is the doorway of the old man's little shop, where a familiar, gentle scent still lingers, and where, when he opens up in an hour or two, there may, just possibly, be more bread. Perhaps it is simply a sheltered patch of pavement that holds the sun out of the wind, where the warmth soaks up slowly into your tired fur. Wherever it is, you have found it the way you find everything. Patiently, cleverly, on your own 4 soft, silent feet, and you settle into it with the deep, total contentment that only a cat coming in from a long, cold night can know. You turn around, the way cats have always turned around, treading some ancient circle written deep in your blood. You fold your legs beneath you. You curl your tail around to cover your nose, and you let your eyes go slowly, heavily closed. And from deep in your chest, soft and steady and warm, a purr rises up again. But a different purr now. The real one. The contented one. The one that means at last I'm safe, and I'm warm, and all is well. The sun climbs higher behind the buildings and pours its first full warmth across your fur, and you let yourself, finally, fully, sink down into sleep. And here, at the very end, is the gentle truth to drift away on. You are still lost in a way. You have not found your old window, your old warmth, your half-remembered name. Perhaps you never will. But you are not lost in the way it felt at the start of the night, alone and frightened in a strange roaring dark, because you have learned, again, the oldest lesson your kind has always known, that for a clever, patient, resilient little survivor like you, there is no city in the whole wide world that cannot be made, at least for a while, into a home. There is always a warm windowsill somewhere. There is always a kind old man with a piece of bread. There is always a high, quiet rooftop above the noise, and a sheltered corner against the cold, and a sun that comes back every single morning without fail to warm the fur of even the smallest and most overlooked creature in the entire sleeping city. You walked into a strange place in the dark, alone, and you found, by dawn, that the world had quietly held you after all. So tonight, as you yourself drift off to sleep, in your own warm bed, with your own roof safe over your head, your own familiar walls around you, spare a soft thought for the small lost cat curled in the first light of a faraway city, purring in the sun, finally at peace after the longest and loudest of nights. Think of how it moved, calm and clever and unbroken, through the very heart of a joy it could never understand. Think of the old man's bread, and the slow shared blink, and the high quiet rooftops above the roar. And remember, the next time you see a cat asleep in a patch of sun, perfectly content, perfectly safe, that it carries inside it 10,000 years of small brave survivors who walked into every city we ever built, and found, every single time, a warm place to call their own. The party is over. The city sleeps. And the smallest creature in it of all is warm and safe, and finally, deeply, peacefully asleep. Sleep well tonight. The world is so much larger, and so much kinder, and so much more full of quiet, small miracles than we ever quite remember to notice. And somewhere out there right now, in the first light of morning, a little lost cat has found its warm place in the sun. Good night.